Okay, everybody, let's get started. So good afternoon and welcome, everybody. My name is Chris, and I am the creative lead here at Mobile Live. And also for the next hour, I get the pleasure of being your moderator for Design Systems, Better, Faster Development for Less. And while I do moderate a fair bit of these webinars, I have to say, this topic I personally am quite fond of and continuously see the value in return from: design systems. Now, design systems are growing in popularity. How do I know? Well, aside from being here at a webinar, all of you being here at a webinar with the first two words in the title being design system, and the fact that this is the second design system I have done in a little over a month, it seems the appetite is real. However, a more quantifiable and influential answer might be that the proof of design systems appeal is its growing adoption rate, which is quickly and steadily increasing. Previously, I spoke about my affinity for design systems as a marketer and as a creative. However, the appeal and value of a design systems are cross-departmental, cross-disciplinary, if not organizational wide. And yet there's a critical fact that you don't often hear about when it comes to design systems: that without development and the men and women behind it, there would be no design systems. If you want to have success with design systems, you need to start with two things: a cross-disciplinary team with a scalable structure in place, and involved development right from the start. Now, we at MobileLive understand that well. That is why Fortune 500 companies across the banking and telecom space turn to us to consult on their own design systems. And I hope I'm allowed to tell you guys this, but we're also about to release our very own multi-brand open source design system for React and Angular. But that's a conversation for another day. For now, it's time to get started, and I'm going to pass it over to your presenters, two gentlemen with firm grips on design systems from the developer perspective, one theoretical, one practical. And together, they will show you just how a design system can take you and your organization to better and faster development at less cost. So on that note, it is my pleasure to introduce your first presenter, a friend and a colleague, Umair.
Hello, hey everyone, this is Umair. Let me quickly share my screen with you. And we'll get started. So, hello, hey everyone. I am Umair, and I am the lead consultant for design systems here at Mobile Live. First of all, thank you, Chris, for having us and the amazing introduction. In my career so far, I have been fortunate enough to work on various domains, and I'm glad that I was able to learn and contribute towards some interesting solutions. But design systems is something that I really fell in love with. That too for so many reasons. The number one reason is that a design system helps improve the life of my own kind, which is the developers. So what is a design system? There's a very common misconception that design systems are only a designer's thing, which is not true. A design system can never be called a design system if it is only a design artifact, no matter how well documented and organized. Another misconception about design systems is that it is only a bunch of reusable components backed by some design artifact. That is also not true. So let's see what are the core features of a design system. A design system is much more than a design artifact or a collection of reusable components. It is a complete package for developers, including but not limited to typography. So typography means what fonts will be used, how the headings should look like, how the body text should look like, um, and how bold and italic text should look like. The next thing is iconography. We all know that icons are very commonly used in the modern UI interfaces for representation of different states. So a design system should include a basic set of basic collection of icons that can be used across different interfaces. Then comes the core part of a design system, which is the components. So the components should be browser ready and should be working across different resolutions and different browsers. The component should be fully accessible. We all know how important accessibility is these days. So the components should be accessible at atomic level so the development teams don't have to worry about it. Then the components should accept certain inputs and should have certain outputs and render the data that is passed in a consistent manner across different browsers and resolutions according to whatever the design artifact is. The next thing is the components should allow the developers to choose different variations of components if they exist. And then the component should also have some basic styling, but it's even better if the components are themable. So in terms of styling in different maybe campaigns, the components are easily themable. Last but not the least, the design system should have a thorough documentation for the development teams. For example, they should have like proper code examples, usage criterias, like when component should be used and when not should be used. What are the best practices in terms of both technical implementation and how the component should be used in terms of performance and different layout renderings. So these are, as I said, the core features of a design system, but it's not limited to these. So let's move on to see what are the benefits of a design system. We talked about the basic components, basic elements of a design system. So let's see what are the benefits of a design system. So the number one benefit, which is very important for businesses, is improved user experience. Since the components are developed to be browser ready, including brand or product styling, the development teams don't have to write any or maybe very less styles, which in returns brings a consistent user experience. The next thing, which is my favorite part, is improved developer experience. A design system in its essence is about simplifying and improving the developer experience through browser-ready components, code examples, and probably integration guidelines. The next thing is really interesting. So it's like designer and developer collaboration. The goal of a design system is to create a living copy of design artifacts or design guidelines that acts as a single source of truth. So in the process of doing so, the design and development teams will collaborate very closely to make sure that every aspect or brand of product design is taken care of. Every aspect of brand or product design is taken care of, sorry. The process of design and developer collaboration may vary from company to company and team to team, but we here at Mobile Live created a very well researched and thought out framework that helps bridge the gap between design and development. Maybe you should take a look at it. I'll move on to the next benefit of a design system, which is improved quality. As we talked earlier, that the design system should be a single source of truth. So it applies to QA as well. And QA teams will also refer to the design system to monitor the implementation of any new feature. Um, the next benefit can be faster prototyping. Um, this benefit of design system is that prototyping becomes really easy. As an example, we were able to stitch a few components from our design system and build a demo within a week that might have been a month's work maybe. Uh, so in the similar manner, the last benefit that I can think of having a design system is faster time to market. Having the UI elements ready, teams can deliver features much quicker than implementing everything from scratch. So this is a huge win in terms of marketing and business gains. So we talked about elements and features, benefits of a design system. Let's move on how we can get started. Um, it might seem a lot of work and you might feel overwhelmed, but let's see what are the steps that we can take to start with. And this is a much research thing that we came up in Mobile Life. So the first step that we can think is discovery or audit of existing state. To start with, you can do a quick audit, probably a couple of hours maybe for existing state of designs and the code base. You can pick 2 or 3 commonly used UI elements, maybe form elements or links or buttons, and find out the differences in design and implementation in different sections of the applications. As an example, we did a quick research with our company projects and found out that every developer implemented somewhat similar UI very differently in terms of implementation. It depends on the skills and experience of each individual developer, which is normal. Now think about a very common situation where multiple development teams are working on different sections of a big application maybe. There might be standard design guidelines that is followed by each design team, but the development teams will be implementing it totally differently because they're working in silos and they're implementing it independently. So you see the problem here. Number one, which is like the most critical thing, is inconsistent user experience. When the user roams through the website or web application from different sections, they will get inconsistent experience. The common UI elements are built over and over by each team. Again, it's increased development effort and cost. So the next thing what we can do is we can present the audits to stakeholders and decision makers. If when we have that audit ready, or maybe we have it already in hand, we can present it to stakeholders and policymakers to give them an insight of how much effort and cost is being spent, and that too in inconsistent user experiences. Um, you don't have to go after a full scale system on the first step. That's nearly impossible. Rather, I think it's better to start small, pick common UI elements, again, like form elements, links, or buttons, build them in a reusable manner, and ask the fellow developers, maybe within your team, to use them and to prove the productivity and efficiency gains. As we have seen and understood so far, that design system is a complete change of mindset as compared to conventional design and development patterns, where the designers work generally with marketing and product teams to design full page layouts, which are then handed over to the development teams. And most of the times, the development teams will implement those full big layouts as singular pieces. However, when building a design system, you have to think in atomic way. Think about every page or layout or user interface as a combination of small atomic reusable pieces which have their own individual design artifact and guidelines. You can once you're done through this whole process, you can start thinking about the setting up the architecture. So while doing this, you have to think about usability. since we understood that it is more about good developer experience, so you should think about like usability, how easy it will be to use the components. And the next thing is adaptability. It should be, the onboarding process should be very easy. And then every component should have performance as the key factor while building those components. So this is what we like when we are done through all that process, we should think about how we can scale and set up and structure our design system. Uh, there are different models that can be adapted based on the company size and budget. So the number one is a dedicated team. This is the ideal state, but it involves a lot of cost because of dedicated resources working solely on the design system. So why is it ideal? Because the dedicated team will be completely focused building the design systems, artifacts, and they'll be the ones making sure that everything works as expected. The other model can be a shared responsibility. In this model, a design system repository or code base is shared among all or maybe multiple development teams, and developers from those teams are allowed to contribute back to the design system. This model is good as well, but it brings a lot of challenges in terms of quality of code, differences in implementations, and so forth. Um, it can be improved by dedicating a couple of resources for who are responsible to make sure that the incoming contributions meet certain set standards. The third one is the open source model. Um, this is again similar to the shared responsibility model, but in this case, we are opening the code base to the public to contribute back. If there are no brand or NDA limitations, this model can be very economical because open source community can bring in great experiences and help in expanding the design system with no cost. The only catch here is, again, you need to have someone dedicated to take care of the incoming contributions and looking for the standards. So I talked about what is a design system, what are the benefits, what are the features, and how we can get started and structure a design system for implementation. With all that being said, I want to say that the heart of a design system, or the beauty of a design system, is the community that is built around it. With that, I will hand it over back to my friend Chris, and thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Umair. Oh, I love design systems. So I hope everybody else enjoyed that. We just took a little trip in the classroom and got some theory. Now it's time to go to our next presenter and dive right into the practical. Dimitri, welcome. I know you've got quite a bit to say, so I'm not going to bore these people with myself and let you present and just jump right into it.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me. I will share my screen. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Looks good.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Today, I will guide you through the challenges that you can face during implementation of design system, and I will share practical things that I learned along this way. I am software engineer, senior software engineer in Mobile Life, and I have more than 10 years of experience overall. And I participated in many front-end projects as a tech lead, and I developed I helped to develop many design systems. And today we will talk about design system and implementation of design system. First, before implementing anything, we should start from requirements. It doesn't matter which system we build, we should, before building, understand what we are going to build. The same approach we can use with design system. And once we start collecting requirements, we should range them, depends on the priority. I think right now is the most priority for Canadian companies to have good support of accessibility because of government regulation and because of all companies should complain with accessibility. I noticed that many open source libraries doesn't have good support of accessibility. That's why it can be one of the reasons to develop in-house design system to cover these requirements. Next requirements, it is about internalization to support many languages. Also, some systems doesn't support internalization fully. What I mean that there are some corner cases that you can face really real difficulties to use those systems. That's why it's worth to have this as a requirement. Next one, it depends on your current situation. I work with different clients, and for some of them, it was really important to have support multi-branding, when you can easily switch to the other brand, have multi-tenancy application, and change colors, styling easily, depends on the client. That's why it depends on your current situation, and you should put this into the list if you need it. Next things related to open source. Once you choose open source, you usually don't have full ownership of the system. And sometimes it's really matter because it leads to the how fast you can deliver new feature, how fast you can change your system. And if you have full ownership of your system, it is much easier for you to change anything in your system. Next things, in requirements, you should ask your users about devices that they use, or collect statistics about usage of devices. It is really important to understand before designing a system because it can lead to the issue in the future. If you have, for example, a lot of users on mobile phones, you should avoid fancy animation and you should start from mobile first approach. Gradually create design from small screens and increase screen sizes. But if you work mostly with enterprise segment and you know that your users most use laptops, you should put there in the corner and develop better experience for them. And everything on UI, it's about user experience. As I mentioned before, depends on the devices. You can predict user experience, you can test it. And design system really helps to deliver better user experience. But once you start designing your design system, you can face this challenge when you have some animation, some design things, and on other hand, you have user experience. And in this requirement, you should state what is more important. Is it more important to have better design, or it is more important to have better experience? If you advertising agency or you work related to some design things, then maybe this trade-off will be obvious for you and you will use better design. But if you are some enterprise system and users work with this system 8 hours per day, maybe design is the second part, but user experience should be main priority for your organization. That's why you should define before implementing what is more important for you. And last one, once you build design system, you should always care about developer experience, how easy to use your system for developers. Because if it is hard to use your system, it means that developers won't use your system and they will fall back to the story with creating their own solutions. Once we have requirements, the next step is build our team. And I noticed that building team, it isn't easy task. And once you get right person on board, everything will be easy. But if you don't have clear responsibility in the team, clear understanding what they should do and how they should do, you can fail in delivery a good result in a right time. And I want to highlight some roles that we should have in our team. First of all, we should have designers who will create designs, and we should have strong development team. And in development team, we should have next roles. We should have HTML and CSS expert. We should have lead front-end developer, and we should have DevOps. It is possible that all those roles can be combined, and it can be one person who acts as these three roles, but we should care that all roles are presented in our team. And last one is QA in our team, that everything should be clear. And everything should work fine once developers and designers created everything. Let's move next. Then once you get together with team and you have requirements and you already know what to do and with whom you will do that, you should have right processes. It's really important, because I noticed that some companies don't have processes and they act as a waterfall, and you should avoid it to have predictable time for deliver results. And I suggest use Agile on Kanban, and you should track that you use these fundamental things like sprints, like daily meetings, demos, is that continuous delivery is set up on your project, and that you track all your tasks in the system. On the screenshot, you can notice that it is Jira software. We use it to track tasks related to design system. Once you set up processes, the most interesting part begin. You start developing your system. And once you are going through development of your system, you will face a lot of challenges. There are much more challenges, but I highlighted the most important of them, and we will briefly go through them and solutions that can inspire you to use in your own project. First of all, it is knowledge sharing. It's really important to share what you develop, how it works, how everybody can use it, and everybody should understand what's going on. And possible solution, it is good to have everything described in the system. For example, on screenshot, you can see an example of user story related to design system, and some cases, description, how we can use this component, and so on and so far. And it's really helpful for team to have this document of requirements and description. Next things is it's really important to have right tools. We use Figma in our daily basis work, but you can use other tools like Sketch, Zeppelin, or InVision. It doesn't matter which tool, but this tool should help you collaborate, should help improve collaboration in the team. Figma does it really well. We have comments there, and developers can leave their comments. Designers can easily be notified that developers have questions, and it improves collaboration. Also, in Figma, we have a lot of examples for component, and it is good to have some corner cases for developers in those tools that they can check everything. Next things on the way to improvement knowledge sharing, it is have learning session. We have many learning sessions during which we are sharing how we can do something. And on this screenshot, it is a screenshot of one of the learning sessions related to the Figma. Our designers shared with team how everybody can create pages using our design system. Next things in knowledge sharing also is documentation that I mentioned. Usually we have lack of time, and it is last priority to implement documentation because mostly everything should work, but documentation is, as I mentioned, it last in the list. And in design system, in terms of that, it is really important to have documentation because if anything implemented but nobody stated and put in documentation, it is possible that this feature can be missed and don't used by developers. In my practice, we use some documentation, and also along that we have some examples of some features that use in a project. Also, it is really important to have additional sync up meetups among teams. Once you have design system team and you have developers, you should sync up them and have at least once a week meeting that everybody can ask and discuss all questions. Next thing is about support accessibility. As I mentioned, it's really important to support, but I got that many developers don't understand what accessibility is and why they should care about that. That's why it's really important to have some additional trainings for developers, for front-end engineers, that they can gain understanding why they need care and how they need care about accessibility. Also, there are many tools already available on the market that you can use to help you test accessibility. And on screenshot, I put some popular of them, and it is shown that they highlight problems that you can have on the interface and you can fix them. Next things, if you have multiple branding support theming, it is also a challenge, and there are many solutions right now. If you use React, you can use styled component. If you use other framework, you can use CSS preprocessor, but the most sufficient solution that we use in our daily basis, it is use CSS variables. Let's move next. Next one is challenge with different frameworks. It is really trendy right now to use micro front-end frameworks when you can use in your application different frameworks. And for that reason, once you start develop your design system, you should decide, do you want to support multi-frameworks or you want to stick with one of them? On last projects, we decided that it is worth to have support for multiple frameworks, like Angular, React, and other, for example, we can extend in the future. That's why we decided separate our HTML, CSS part and have it as a separate project, and on the top of it, implement features for Angular and React with those frameworks. As I mentioned it, and you can see on screenshot that we use Storybook, and for React we have components there, and for Angular we also have components there. And because of this HTML, CSS, we can easily reuse them in the development of our frameworks implementations. Once you start doing everything, it is possible that you will face other issues with quality. Because of time restriction, because of deadlines, developers can speed up, and on this way they can decrease quality of their product. That's why you should keep that you deliver quality product. And there are many tools that can help you, and one of them, it is tools related to CDCI. It is automatic tools that can check your code quality and immediately notify developers if there any problem with that. Next things is really important too, to have collaboration between developers and code reviews of their code. On screenshot, you can see that we use PR for that, and we review code on the project. Also, you should check performance of your component, because it's possible that you develop component, but there are some issue with browser, with performance, and you should keep track on it too. And last one, but not least, challenge that you can face, it is about developer experience. I can split it to three parts: onboarding, usage and breaking changes. When onboarding, I mean for new developers, how easy to use your system. For daily basis usage is how hard to implement features in this system. And third one is if you implement anything that new or break old behavior, you should introduce breaking changes. And for that, you can first collect feedback. You should check most popular frameworks library and their API, and you shouldn't invent something new. You should use most popular approach, and it will be easy for developers to use that. And also you should check how it is implement new features using your design system. And last, about breaking changes, you should do prototypes. You should have main repo. It will be easy to change everything. And you should keep track of changes in the changelog file. That will be easy to understand where you're moving and what is the breaking changes. That's all about developer experience. And I want to remind you about benefits that you will get once you solve all of those issues and once you develop your design system. You will increase speed of development. You will have the same language for developers and designers. It means that designers will spend less time to develop design, developers spend less time to develop their design, and they will understand this language. Also, you get consistent user experience among all the pages, among all your applications, and it's really great. And also, you will get huge improvements of quality. Everything will be more quality than before once you use different approaches. And last one, you will be compliant with all government's requirements, and your user will be delighted to have all those features. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.
That was amazing.
Please.
Thank you so very much, Dmitry. Perfect. So that takes us to my favorite part of the whole event, which is the Q&A part, or as I like to call it, let's try and stump the panel. So we've got Umair back up here, and we do have a few questions that have come in from the audience right now. So I'm just going to toss these out there to nobody in particular. Whomever would like to answer, please feel right ahead and go. And I encourage everybody else in the audience, if you haven't already, please do use the chat or the QA function to ask your question. So first up we have, does the choice of framework play any role in a design system? All right.
Sorry?
Go for it, Dmitry. Could you not hear the question? I apologize.
Yeah, can you repeat, please?
Does the choice of framework play any role in the design system?
Yes. As I mentioned, is right now it's trend about micro front ends, and it is possible that in the next years you will have to switch to another framework. That's why it's really important to understand this, and I think it is worth to think about future and implement first part, like some fundamental things that will be framework agnostic, like I shown CSS, HTML part, that doesn't matter which framework you will use in the future, you can reuse this part. But if you're sticking with some framework right now, it is possible that in 5 years, nobody will care about this framework. Like nobody remember Backbone or other old framework, but everybody right now talk about React, about Vue, Angular, and other frameworks. But it's possible that in next years we will hear another names, and that's why I think that we should predict a little bit this future and try to do something according to that. That's my suggestion.
Try and predict the future. No
Yeah.
easy task to do. Okay. The next one we've got is you on these. Sorry, you on these slides and challenge, or for the slides on the challenges relating to supporting frameworks. Why can't we just develop for one framework?
As I mentioned it before, that in the future we can get situation that we will use different frameworks, but also it is possible that some frameworks have better support. For example, if we stick with one of the framework, it is possible that some features are better implemented in other framework, and we wanted to switch it, for example, because of a big footprint. Everybody knows that Angular and React has big bundle size, and it can lead to the issue when once we decided to have small pages, small components, or use web components in the future. That's why it is worth to think about that and try to understand what you will use, what needs will be in your projects, and that's why it's better to have support for 2 or 3 frameworks that you can easily switch between them and use according to your tasks.
That makes sense.
I'll add to this. If you plan to go open source, then again, having framework agnostic components or maybe support for multiple frameworks will obviously make it a lot easy to adapt for people around the world.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the word open source, because that kind of leads me to my next question. Is it secure to use open source in the project?
It's definitely secure. We, like front-end developers all over the world have been using the open source libraries extensively every day in every single project. This is how the front-end world is today. So open source is completely secure. And the good thing about GitHub is that they recently introduced a new feature where they highlight if any dependency of your project has any vulnerability. So anyways, you can, if there is something that is popped out, you can switch, and there are always multiple options for different things to do.
Open source all the way.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with Umer, but I want to add additional things, is that you should implement some additional precautions, like CLI tools to check it. There is Sonar Cube. There is you can use your in-house storage to keep packages that you use outside in your in-house storage, and to be more secure about changes in these packages. Also, NPM provide audit tool, and you can audit vulnerability and understand what's going on. Also, NPM really care about it, and this tool is really great to use.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I think this next question is going to relate more to some of Umer's slides. What other features might a design system have? I believe you mentioned 4 of them.
Yeah, so a design system can, on top of those 4, we can have coding guidelines, best practices, and one thing that I like most is in some design system there are utilities. So style utilities, for example, grid styling or paddings or spacings or stuff like that. So style utilities, and there are some always in certain applications, there are some common features. So if the design system is being used within an organization by multiple teams, there must be some common utilities that that every team is using. So maybe if we can make those utilities part of the design system code, so it's a, again, single source of truth for everyone. So yeah.
Perfect. I'm just waiting to see if Dimitri has something to add. I don't want to cut him off like I did last time.
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, we've got another one coming in. Well, this one's interesting. How is CICD impacting design systems? Ooh, I see the wheels moving.
So,
yeah,
please go ahead. I think it's more about your stuff.
Yeah, I mentioned it about CDCI, and it is a part of the process of development design system. According to the processes, the really important things that you should have continuous delivery, that everything should be automated. You shouldn't have special person that press the button, deploy or something. Everything should be automated, like you should have unit tests, you should have automation deployment, and so on and so forth. That's why CDCI is a part of design system and really important part of it.
Yeah, and I think as Dimitri already mentioned that having code quality checks being embedded inside the CI/CD pipelines make sure that the code that is going out of our hands is meeting the quality standards, and there are no vulnerabilities. For example, if as Dimitri mentioned, we can have SonarQube hooked up with our CI pipelines to make sure that if there is any vulnerable code that is somehow embedded into our system through some third-party library, maybe open source library that we talked about. So yeah, having a CI/CD setup within as part of the whole design system thing, make sure that the applications that are going to use the design system are not affected by something that we didn't take care of.
So there's a lot of interconnectivity that you've got to
Right.
kind of account for when implementing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, and also, Chris, I mentioned in the slides that we should have role of Devops, person who can set up all these tools. It's really important too, because without right person, it is impossible to set up.
Yeah, a carpenter's only as good as his tools, as they say. I'm glad somebody brought this question up because I often hear about this as well, and I think this might be of interest to a lot of people. How exactly does a design system improve the design dev collaboration? Like you guys kind of touched on it a bit, but I think they might want a little bit more detail.
So, as I said, the goal of a design system is to create a single source of truth for the organization or the brand or the product maybe. To achieve that, the designers and developers have to speak same language. I think Dimitri mentioned in one of his slides as well that both designers and developers will have to speak same language. So to speak same language, they'll have to collaborate more frequently. And when that happens, it kind of, as I said, like it's a change of mindset. And when frequent collaboration happens, so both sides listen to each other, it gradually starts improving the collaboration process, and everyone comes on a single page in terms of thinking about how the UI will look like.
Okay, that was good.
Yeah, I have to add from my practical.
Yeah,
I want to share not theoretical knowledge but practical things. One of the examples that we had on the project, this project started from initially without any design systems. There was designs, and designers each time have to show spacing, margin, padding for all components, and it was unclear for developers what they should use. And for QA engineers, it was also unclear how it should look like in the final design. And we faced a lot of issue because designers have to change their design because of inconsistency, and it took enormous amount of time to communicate these changes between developers, designers, and also it took amount of time to create this on the design. Can you imagine how hard it is for designer, how time consuming to put everything together? But once on this project, it was after some time on this project, we introduced design system, and we spent some time to define this design system. But once we have done it, what we got that developers didn't ask any question to designer about spacing because it was supplied by design system. Designers shouldn't care about pixel perfect on their design because they use button, for example, and button already have some spacing, and even if it is not looks so good on design, it will looks good and consistent in the final application. And QA engineers, they have to check only how this buttons align with design system guidelines. It means that everybody speak on the same language. We have a single point of truth. It is design system, and it is simplified. And once new, it was other case one, we have sprint, but there was urgent task. Some new page should be developed. And if we talk about all process, designers have to create this page from scratch, define everything. But once we got this design system, we just got these requirements, and designers put components on the page, and developers can develop, and it's dramatically speed up. And in this sprint, we deliver this feature. But if we had that approach that before, we won't deliver any feature at all, because this collaboration checking and so on, or we would deliver this feature, but it would be poor quality and inconsistent among other pages. That's why design system really improve this collaboration and process.
Delivering quality on time. Sounds good to me. This is a good question. You mentioned atomic design systems. How complicated is it to get to that level of templates? And are templates effective for mobile applications as well?
So I'll take this one. Templates is very subjective. For some projects, template might mean one part of the page. For some projects, template might mean a full page layout. For some projects, template might mean like 3-column structure, or maybe 4-column structure. Like if we have, I'll insist, like if we have atomic pieces that render consistently based on the layout they are placed in, templates should not be a big deal, because templates then it's just a matter of combining pieces together, those atomic pieces together, and just forming the layouts.
I totally agree with Umair, and it really helps, because if we get new requirements, new page, we can easily reuse our items to put into the page and to deliver it.
Okay. See, I waited that time before I started talking. I knew you had something to say. So the next question is, how is the monitoring done? Is it done at the sprint level?
If it is the monitoring about the delivery and whatever like components we're delivering, it again depends from team to team, I guess, and what process company or team is taking up. For some, it might be done during the sprint. For some, it might be done later in the time. For some cases, it might be like a feature specific thing that like maybe if it's a big feature, maybe it's a separate squad that is taking care of the whole thing. So again, it depends from case to case. But ideally, since we're looking at atomic pieces, so it's pretty easy to have it done during the sprint.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question, and I think might be a long answer, so I'm going to ask you to be a little aware of that. But how do you deal with the differences of interfaces, Android versus iOS and web, for components? Are there any best practices to abstract the platform interface, or interface specific experience?
So design system, I think it should not depend on device or browser size. We should talk about browser first. I think it was part of one of Dimitri's slide as well. So we should talk about browser first designs. Mobile first designs. Mobile first means that it's a new UI approach these days. So there are some challenges when we talk about browsers in Android or iOS devices, but I don't see that we should actually abstract out or like handle anything differently if it comes to device browser. The components should be consistent, whether you just resize a desktop browser to a mobile size, or whether you open the same thing on a real device, or maybe you use a simulator. Ideally, the components should render exactly same and consistently across browsers and resolutions.
I can think of at least a dozen people I'd like you to tell that to.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Dimitri?
Yeah, I want to add about that. We should first of all distinguish what we are talking about. Today, I mostly talked about HTML, CSS, and related to front-end part related to browser and in-browser application, websites, some applications that can be run in browser. But also we have native applications that can be run on iOS and Android. And for native application, we already have design guidelines that provided by Apple and Google. It is material design, and Apple has guidelines about components. That's why before starting develop any native application, designers and developers should check guidelines on the top of the things. That's really important, because I heard some terrible story about that designers and developers implemented something custom, and once there was an upgrade to the other iOS version, everything was broken and doesn't work properly, because once you develop this native mobile application, and if you stick with this guidelines of Apple or Google, you will easily upgrade to the next version, and everything will work along the other version. It's regarding to the native application, and we didn't talk about native application today, and it is other topic, other story about native applications. Also in the mobile, you can have hybrid application. It means that it will looks like native application, but inside there will be browser. It is Cordova, PhoneGap, and other solutions there. And it means that you have this view, browser view, but without controls of browser, like navigation controls. And this application already related to the design system. We can define what behavior should be. I had in my experience that we have to cover, it was a widely used system, and we should cover all cases. Even on mobile devices, we tried to deliver best user experience. And what we did, we implemented in our design system checking on which system it is running. And if it is run on Android, we got one appearance for devices, because it is optimization. Like on Android, there is special user used to use some experience and tools. But for iOS, we shown other tools, other controls, and designers specially develop this user experience for those users, for two platforms. But once this application was opened on the big screen, there was other experience, and those controls changed their appearance and behavior, because there was enough space for showing everything. That's it can be. That's my conclusion. It can be covered by design system, but we should understand what we are developing. We are developing native application, or we develop hybrid application, or we develop browser application. That's first of all, we should understand.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dimitri. That was an amazing answer. Unfortunately, we are all out of time, and we did not get a chance to get to everybody's questions. So if anybody does have a question, feel free to reach out to us, and we will more than happily get it answered for you. So that about does it for us. You see, the problem every time I moderate one of these webinars is I have a hard time refocusing for the rest of the day, especially when they're about design systems. I really hope my boss isn't watching this right now. But I think you'd all agree that when you take a moment to really just think about how far-reaching the impact of a well-architected and properly invented design system is, it's enough to get excited for. I wanted to thank both Dimitri and Umair for presenting and sharing their knowledge with us today. And I wanted to thank all of you for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule. We will be sharing this webinar with everybody likely next week. And keep an eye out. We've got some really, really great webinars on the horizon. Thank you very much, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.